Are the world's endangered animals trying to tell us something?
They need your help to keep this place going.
If you save the wolves, you save this place.
Elephants and people are now locked in a battle over food and water.
It's time we listened. The Saving Planet Earth season continues next week at 7 on BBC1.
Versus Arlene in the battle to create the ultimate group. This time, it's personal. DanceX, coming soon to BBC1.
Now on BBC1, later than planned, the news with Ben Brown at Glasgow Airport and Emily Maitlis in London.
5 suspects are under arrest after the attempted bombings in Glasgow and London. At least one is still on the run. This is the moment one of the men struck, hosed down by an off-duty police officer. Forensic examination of the Jeep is underway. It could provide vital clues.
We will be able to gain a thorough understanding of the methods used by the terrorists, of the way in which they planned their attacks, and of the network to which they belong.
Security's been stepped up at airports and train stations, causing chaos for passengers. In tonight's other news, the princes pay tribute to their mother at the concert for Diana. And third place for Lewis Hamilton, but he stretches his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Hello, good evening. 5 people have now been arrested in connection with the attack at an airport and the failed bombings in London. But a massive manhunt is still underway. Detectives say there's at least one suspect on the run. The people in custody are apparently of Middle Eastern origin and are being held in Glasgow and London. First tonight, Richard Bilton reports on the investigation.
Tonight, a last gathering of evidence. The burnt-out Jeep sits where it ended up, smashed through the door of Terminal 1. Fire damage all around, but look at the officers working at the back of the vehicle. They are moving away propane gas canisters. They were meant to make the damage here on a devastating scale. The vehicle is then moved away, further forensic examination. The First Minister, Ali Vowles, came to visit this scene today. He said Scotland would not be beaten by terrorism.
Given the world in which we live, it would be foolish indeed to believe that we could be immune from incidents that are taking place elsewhere, which is why we prepared so well in case it did happen. Clearly you hope it never happens, but you prepare for the day that it did happen and respond accordingly.
EZY 208.
And as the investigation went on inside the terminal, this was the scene outside. A kind of organised chaos, hundreds queuing in the rain for the chance of a flight.
Can't really hear what the police is saying, but it's a bit unorganised, but it's expected, isn't it?
Oh, it's just been chaotic. It's just been standing around for ages and ages and ages. We haven't seen a wreck, anybody at all to tell us what's happening. So.
It was holidaymakers that were the target of this. This is the Jeep seconds after it hit the terminal yesterday afternoon. 2 men were in the vehicle, and this amazing picture shows one of them being hosed down by an off-duty policeman. These images were all taken by passers-by, and the police say they are crucial evidence and they want more.
We're examining CCTV footage from the airport and surrounding area, but I would welcome photographs or video images from anyone who's at the airport when this incident occurred, or indeed in the half hour before the incident occurred. And equally welcome them from people who have not yet come forward.
And one BBC viewer captured this development in the investigation. 15 minutes from the airport in the village of Houston, and a police team move in to search a property. It's thought 2 Asian men had been living here in recent weeks. And at about the same time, another operation at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. It's here the driver of the Jeep is being treated for his burns. Listen to this. That crack is a controlled explosion. a vehicle thought to be linked to yesterday's attacks. And of course, all this affects the whole city. In the centre of Glasgow today, people from the Muslim community met to discuss the implications of what has happened.
Extremism of any sort will not be tolerated, and I don't think Muslims are feeling vulnerable for other reasons, but not certainly when these actions happen. It brings us closer to the community because we're all united and disgusted by these actions.
In the terminal, there is still a very strong smell of smoke. Out here, the Jeep has gone. The airport is trying to get back to normal, but the investigation is undiminished. The hunt for those attackers who brought terrorism crashing into this building. Richard Bilton, BBC News, Glasgow Airport.
Well, we can cross live now to Glasgow Airport and to Ben Brown. Ben.
Yes, Emily, some good news for travellers here after a day of chaos at Glasgow Airport. The terminal building that was attacked yesterday has now reopened and flights are operating pretty much normally. Now, as far as the investigation goes, the man leading the hunt says the link between the attack here in Glasgow Airport and the attempted bombings in London is becoming ever clearer. Officers have been searching homes 5 miles away from here in Houston, in Renfrewshire, and also other houses in Liverpool and Stoke-on-Trent. Gavin Hewitt reports now on an investigation that is spanning the UK.
Britain under threat critical. Roadblocks, armed police outside airports, and for the public, long queues. But this has also been a day of some progress, of arrests and raids across the country in a desperate race to find the bombers before they strike again. Liverpool, officers searched 2 addresses in the city. 1 person was arrested. The operation began in the middle of the night. Armed police came to this community, home to many students and Asians. Later, a 26-year-old man was detained near Lime Street Station. There was also a dramatic operation on the M6 motorway, between junctions 16 and 17 near Sandbach. 2 people were arrested by armed officers. This was where they surrounded a car. A woman and a man were detained. An eyewitness told us the police dressed the couple in white protective suits to preserve potential evidence. Later, police sealed off a detached house in Newcastle-under-Lyme. Neighbours said it was rented by a hospital doctor with a young child. And with the 2 arrests made in Glasgow, it means that 5 people are being detained, but this is a very fluid operation. Since the car bombs were discovered in London on Friday, the police believe they've made real progress. Once again, CCTV pictures have proved invaluable. The recovered cars, with their relatively amateur devices, have yielded clues, and the police now know a great deal about who was involved.
I'm confident, absolutely confident, that in the coming days and weeks, we will be able to gain a thorough understanding of the methods used by the terrorists, of the way in which they planned their attacks, and of the network to which they belong.
What the police can't guarantee is that there won't be further attacks, and they're actively looking for at least 1 more person. Outside sensitive areas like airports, there are already extra patrols. Today, some people were being stopped and searched on the approach roads to Heathrow.
This is part of what Britain under threat level critical will actually be like. What's happening here is that officers have stopped a car coming into Heathrow Airport and are putting sniffer dogs inside. And we're going to see much more of that, not just like here at airports, but also at railway stations, with police stopping and searching vehicles.
Tomorrow, and the start of the working week, large numbers of extra police will be deployed on trains and tubes. There is likely to be some disruption. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News.
So as we've been hearing, 1 suspect still thought to be on the run tonight and a massive manhunt underway. Let's get the very latest now from Scotland Yard and join our Home Affairs correspondent, Daniel Sanford. Daniel, the police from their news conference sounding pretty confident about this investigation.
Yes, absolutely. The investigation is moving with breathtaking speed, and detectives are talking about a gold mine of information found particularly in the 2 cars recovered here from London. And now, of course, using modern detective techniques, things like automatic number plate recognition, they've been able to get very quickly to the men that they believe who are behind these attacks. But of course, that's only the beginning of it. 1 suspect is still on the run. That's of concern, but I get the impression here tonight that this operation, the arrest phase of it, could be over by tomorrow night, and then becomes the process of building evidence, of course, to get a case against these men and this one woman. They need to get to the state where they can charge them first. That's the next phase of the operation after the arrest phase. And I should say that we do believe that we know the identity of one of those arrested today. He's Mohammed Asher, thought to be an Iranian doctor who came to this country to work as a doctor and ended up being arrested on the M6 in that extraordinary arrest operation in the middle of the motorway. Ben.
All right, Daniel Sandford, thank you very much, Daniel, with the very latest there from Scotland Yard. Well, now the new Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, has linked the people behind the events of the last 3 days to Al-Qaeda. Gordon Brown told the BBC today that Britain faces a long-term threat, but the country, he said, would not yield.
We will have to be constantly vigilant. We will have to be alert at all times. And I think the message that's got to come out from Britain and from the British people is that, as one, we will not yield, we will not be intimidated, and we will not allow anyone to undermine our British way of life. We're dealing with a long-term threat. It's not going to go away in the next few weeks or months. We have to fight it in a number of different ways, militarily, by security, by police, by intelligence. And I think it's important to say also, on a day like this, we've got to also fight it as a battle of hearts and minds. We've got to separate, if you like, those great moderate members of our community from a few extremists.
Well, our political correspondent Guito Harry is in Downing Street for us tonight. Guito, the Prime Minister in office for just a matter of days, and now all of this, really a monumental challenge for him. How is he going to deal with this threat, do you think?
The most striking thing today, Ben, no breathless promise of immediate new measures. You heard Gordon Brown yourself just then talk about these as subtle, complex, even delicate issues that require a sophisticated response. And perhaps the most reassuring things for people normally critical of the government was the way that he went out of his way today to stress that any new measures that compromise civil liberties have to be introduced calmly. There needs to be proper judicial process. There needs to be proper parliamentary procedure. There needs to be a comprehensive discussion in Cabinet. It was a very cautious Prime Minister, and people normally critical of the government, quite strikingly tonight, have already welcomed that change of style and of substance.
All right, Guito, thanks very much. Guito Harry in Downing Street. Well, the tactics used in these attacks are a departure from previous methods deployed by terrorists in this country. As we've heard, the suspects are not believed to be British-born or British-bred. Our security correspondent Frank Gardner has this assessment now.
Under arrest and already being questioned, one of the two men who drove a blazing car into Glasgow Airport Terminal. His badly burnt co-driver, seen here on the ground, has been in critical condition. Investigators have been trying to find out where these men came from and why they attacked Scotland.
All of Scotland is uniform, as I say, in their condemnation of this atrocity. And as I say, the information that we have is that the perpetrators were certainly not born or raised here in Scotland.
Whatever the motives behind the recent failed attacks in Glasgow and London, there is, separately, an established pattern to Al-Qaeda's targeting of Britain. Terror plots in this country are currently stoked by widespread Muslim resentment over the West's role in Iraq, as well as Afghanistan and the Palestinian territories. News from the Middle East is watched closely here, and it helps radicalise angry young men in Britain and Europe. A small, violent minority then head over to Pakistan, tacking on visits to training camps after seeing their families. Committed to violent jihad, they then head back to Britain. Jihadist websites on the internet play a crucial role in recruiting, radicalising and communicating with Al-Qaeda sympathisers around the world. Those that do make it up into the hill camps near the Afghan-Pakistani border are further indoctrinated and trained by experts in bomb making. And now there's a further worry. Car bombs, the tactic of choice by jihadists in Iraq, appear to be the latest weapon for those bent on attacking Britain. So is Al-Qaeda's leadership behind these latest attacks?
It's too early to tell whether Al-Qaeda Central had a role in this particular attack. Because it failed, it's unlikely that Al-Qaeda will want to claim responsibility for something that's been botched. But what we do know is that all the major plots since March 2004 have a connection to the Al-Qaeda hierarchy going back to Pakistan.
But across Britain this weekend, Muslims were appalled by the violence being attempted in their name. Organisations like the British Muslim Initiative and the Ramadan Foundation have both roundly condemned the failed attacks and called on all Muslims to help the police. Frank Gardner, BBC News.
Well, that's just about it from us here at Glasgow Airport. Just to say that the new Home Secretary, Jackie Smith, will be making a statement to MPs in the House of Commons on the failed attacks here in Glasgow and in London. That statement in the House tomorrow. From Glasgow, back now to the studio, Emily.
Ben, thanks very much indeed. Other news now, and the Ministry of Defence have confirmed that a British soldier has been killed in Afghanistan. He was from the 1st Battalion, the Worcestershire and Sherwood Foresters, and he died fighting Taliban rebels in the north of Helmand province. The soldier hasn't been named, but his family have been informed. Parts of northern England and East Anglia remain on flood alert after more heavy rain. The Environment Agency has 4 severe flood warnings in South Yorkshire, and it will take at least 3 days of pumping before residents can return to the worst affected areas. Danny Savage reports from Tolbar.
On the 7th day, the water started to recede. These pumps, put in by firefighters drafted in from South Wales, are sucking out 100,000 litres a minute, and they are very welcome.
It was quite good yesterday when we did put water through the pipes. All the residents actually started clapping, and it was quite good for the fire service. Like myself, we came up from South Wales, working with colleagues from Shropshire and from all over the country, and that's great.
Graham Brocklesby and his sons have a long wade to their home. They've come to pick up school uniforms and other belongings, but their best efforts to protect their house were in vain.
Before we left, we put everything on. We've got a snooker table there. We put it on top of the table, thinking that was high enough, but it's not been. You know, the snooker table's been covered. It's surreal, really, isn't it?
It's not until you get inside these houses that you realise just how horrendous the flooding is. They say it's going to take 3 or 4 more days of pumping before the water goes out of here, and only then will people be able to get back in to sort out the damage. A wide area is still underwater, including thousands of acres of farmland. Crops have been ruined, but there's little anyone can do until the water recedes. And so vast is the volume that it's going to be a very slow process. Danny Savage, BBC News, Tolbar near Doncaster.
More than 62,000 people have been celebrating the life of Diana, Princess of Wales, at a concert at Wembley Stadium. The event was organised by Princes William and Harry to mark the 10th anniversary of her death. The Princess would have been 46 today. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell reports from Wembley.
Just as she was in life, Diana, Princess of Wales, remains an immense crowd puller. 60,000 came to Wembley Stadium, 500 million watched on television in 140 countries.
It's a little bit funny.
The concert was a celebration of her life, performed by many of the artists who were her favourites. It was opened by Elton John. And then her sons, William and Harry, stepped a little nervously onto the stage with their own welcome.
Hello, Wembley! This evening is about all that our mother loved in life. Her music, her dance, her charities, and her family and friends.
Harry had a message for the soldiers from the Blues and Royals, who he wasn't allowed to accompany to Iraq.
I wish I was there with you. I'm sorry I can't be. To you and everybody else in operations at the moment, we'd both like to say, stay safe.
Watching it all, Kate Middleton, the girlfriend William broke up with 3 months ago. And in the royal box, seated beside Harry, his girlfriend Chelsea Davy, making her first public appearance with him. After 6 hours of music and fun, the concert ended with William and Harry back on the stage.
This has been the most perfect way of remembering her. And this is how she would want to be remembered.
Nicholas Witchell, BBC News, at Wembley Stadium.
Thank you and good night.
The concert for Diana. Lewis Hamilton failed to make it 3 consecutive Grand Prix victories today, but he maintained his record of a podium finish at every race this season, finishing 3rd in France behind the Ferraris of Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa. And with the British Grand Prix just a week away, Hamilton increased his lead at the top of the standings to 14 points.
Sharing the champagne with 2 Ferrari drivers was sobering for Lewis Hamilton, but with another podium finish, that's 8 out of 8, he's not doing too badly.
Got good points for the championship, which is key. And I think obviously we need to keep on pushing. The Ferraris are very quick this weekend, but I still think we can take it to them in the next race.
No matter how he does at Silverstone next weekend, he'll still lead the championship. But the first Ferrari 1-2 of the season put him in his place in France. Overtaken at the start by Kimi Raikkonen, he was chasing a lost cause. Hamilton was rarely threatened for 3rd. He was briefly pushed off the podium by Robert Kubica, but very briefly. Hamilton's only hope of finishing higher was a Ferrari failure. What price a blown engine or a fluffed pit stop for them? But they were perfect, and the only drama there was outside the Spiker garage and a rather hasty splash and dash from Christian Albertz. Ferrari it was then, leaving Hamilton trailing over half a minute behind. He still got something for the mantelpiece, but at Silverstone they'll be going all out to burst Ferrari's bubble. Ollie Foster, BBC News.
Now let's get the latest on the weather with John Hammond. John.
Thanks, Emily. Well, it's been a fairly mixed weekend, and that's a good word to describe the weather through the coming week. No signs of it settling down just yet. And although we should all see something of the sun through tomorrow, there will be further heavy showers developing through the day. Now, there's some showers around now, primarily across some western parts of the UK, and some more prolonged rain across the northwest Highlands in particular. Further east, though, a lot of dry weather to end the night, and not a cold one, 11 to 15 degrees north to south. So what about Monday then? Well, it's going to be a showery affair. There will be some sunshine around, but these showers will develop quite widely, and they will be quite heavy, I think, by the afternoon. Certainly through the heart of England, there'll be some torrential downpours around, quite slow moving these showers too. If you catch one, you'll know all about it. But in the brighter spells, 17 to 19 degrees shouldn't feel too bad. Certainly the risk of some thundery showers across the far north of England, parts of Scotland. Probably a better chance of some brightness across the Western Highlands by the afternoon. But for Northern Ireland, it looks a very showery day, and these showers will be quite slow moving. And again, the risk of some thunder around. Don't take the position of these blue areas too literally. It just gives the sense that nearly all of us will catch 1 or 2 showers from time to time. But if you're lucky and you get in the sun and out of the breeze, it shouldn't feel too bad at 17 or 18 across western parts of England. 21 in London, but a greater chance of some showers, for example, in Wimbledon than we saw today. Now, as we look ahead to the next couple of days, the chance of some more prolonged rain for a time across southeastern England, but for most of us, more sunshine and showers. Emily.
John, thank you. The main news tonight, 5 people have been arrested in connection with the terror attack at Glasgow Airport and the failed bombings in London. But police say at least 1 suspect is on the run. That's the latest. There will be news throughout the night over on News 24. But now it's time to join our news teams where you are this evening.
A very good evening from Points West. Dozens of residents in Gloucester made homeless after their houses flooded nearly a week ago are still unable to return home. Heavy rain and the suspected failure of a pumping station caused the problems. Tony Arnese has the details.
This is lounge first of all. It sort of ripped everything apart. We've had it taken off today, but obviously you can see that's how high the water level got up to.
Neil Bond revisits his devastated home to see what can be salvaged.
I haven't been given any time limits really on how long it's going to take to get back in here. You know, all I've been told is about 3 weeks to dry. Well, I'll show you the kitchen now. It's basically come in with such force that it's lifted the fridge freezer up and put it down in the position you see it now.
Dozens of families have been hit. This was the scene last Monday. The cause of the flooding is now being investigated, but a nearby water pumping station is said to have failed, and that contributed to the flooding.
It would seem that from the Environment Agency's point of view, we'd like to know how the field flooded where the water pump was kept for the sewage, because it actually failed because it became flooded.
It'll take weeks for life to get back to normal on the estate. Residents are demanding answers and are holding a public meeting tomorrow night. Tony Arnese, BBC Points West, Gloucester.
The area in front of Bristol International Airport is still closed to all vehicles apart from the airport's own buses. Security outside the main doors has been stepped up, but the majority of flights from the airport are unaffected by yesterday's incident at Glasgow Airport. Passengers are being asked to remain vigilant. A 13-year-old boy led a protest outside Bristol Prison earlier today, demanding his father's release. Michael Cox has been sentenced to 42 days in jail, but his family say he shouldn't be there. Liz Beacon reports.
Bonkers was the way Fathers for Justice described this prison sentence. Michael Cox is inside for refusing to pay maintenance to his former wife. He believes they have an amicable agreement on how they wish to raise their children. But the Child Support Agency says the law is the law, and according to their records, he's now amassed debts of £42,000, something disputed by Fathers for Justice.
I don't see he owes anything. If this is the man who discharges his responsibility to his children with no benefits, no assistance from the state, even his ex-wife begged the court for him not to be sent to prison because it would have forced her out of work and onto benefits. Where is the common sense in that?
One of his children was here today, backing his dad as a hero for taking a stance.
Sad because I can't see him for 6 weeks, but glad because he's going to try and change the law for everyone else that's in this situation.
Those here today were insisting Michael Cox isn't a criminal, and they're confident today's action should help secure his early release. Liz Beacon, BBC Points West, Bristol.
A special ceremony took place last night to pay tribute to some of the best care workers in Somerset. Hosted by our own Chris Vasher, 15 staff were praised for outstanding work. One of the awards was collected by 92-year-old Bill Phillipson on behalf of his wife, 87-year-old Glenys. She worked as a carer for 40 years, right up until her death earlier this year. Well, cricket now, and Gloucestershire have been in 2020 action against Worcestershire today. Batting first, Gloucestershire made 198 for 7 from their 20 overs. In reply, Worcestershire could only manage 137 all out. The Gladiators win by 61 runs. So after a day of sunshine and showers, tonight will be cloudy with showers, staying quite mild with a low of 13 Celsius. Tomorrow there'll be scattered showers developing quite quickly during the morning, but also some drier and brighter spells with occasional sunshine and a top temperature of 18 Celsius. And then Tuesday onwards, staying rather unsettled with further showers and temperatures near or slightly below average. That's it. We'll be back in the morning just before 6:30. Have a good night.
Next up tonight on BBC1, Bad Dreams Run in the Family in medium. When children are taken into care, it can be controversial. Panorama investigates the story of one family tomorrow at 8:30 on BBC1.
There's a whole world to explore out there, and on the one show we're going to be exploring it. Correct. We'll be on every night, Monday to Friday, looking at everything from wildlife to real life. We'll be delving where other programmes just don't delve. No time for tea. This is serious. This is The One Show.
The One Show with Adrian, Charles and friends, live every weeknight at 7 on BBC1 starting next Monday.
Medical science is amazing, but it's what the human body can achieve that will really take your breath away.
To take life and give life has been as close to a miracle as you get.
Lily's heart will go on to beat another 3 billion times in her lifetime.
For the first time, we get under the skin of medicine to see how people survive against impossible odds. A new series tracing our struggle for life, starting with birth. Fight for Life. Next Monday at 9 on BBC1.
It was what the world was waiting for. The birth of British indie music. 7 Ages of Rock, now at 11:35, charts the growth of the music for misfits. First on BBC1, later than scheduled. Is this a dream date or a nightmare?